Hey guys, cool blonde way back. I'm Rick.
I'm Maggie.
And we are back with Ghost in the Shell standalone complex second gig. Last time on,
We met the 11 in person and found out they were triggered by some sort of a virus that is implanted by consuming all of the papers written by this one dude, Patrick Sylvester.
yeah, they seemed manipulated, unaware, like none of them had the copy of the thing that they thought they had, and now none of them have their heads.
Except for one.
Except for Kuze, I believe is his name.
Which it just so happened to work out that 11 guys died.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very interested to see how things progress from here. It was just like a crazy cliffhanger last time that happened, and then credits. So I want to see. So let's go.
Well, that kind of... that didn't follow the plot that we were on before.
Nope, that was a bit of a divergence.
Oh my gosh. Pazu, man. When
Might be dead.
No, like when they started the fight, the first time he got cut, he was bleeding.
Yeah.
And when they showed the close-up of the dead body, it was just like...
Woundless?
Yeah, it was just like, peeled plastic. It wasn't bleeding at all.
Yeah. Yeah, when she said, like, I have your ghost inside me, so I don't need you anymore.
I was like, oh, she's got his face.
But yeah, because it's like what the bartender was talking about, right?
I think that was her.
Yeah. But was it her at that point?
Yeah.
I guess it would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. Why else bring up that whole, like, ghosts are in the skin deep?
Ah, man. Jilted lovers. Go watch out.
So just horrible timing on that, then.
Yes. I guess so.
She went to that artist probably to...
Make his face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And got it.
Mm-hmm. It killed him. It's unfortunate.
And it was successful.
I wonder what the ethics of like that is like. Like...
What? Killing someone or making new faces?
Well... So, like, right now, can anyone paint a picture of me and, like, sell that picture of that picture? Like, there's, at least for celebrities and stuff, there's, like, you can own your likeness, right? Like, Final Fantasy Advent Children, one of the main characters in that Genesis is based off from a real life Japanese person. Like his character model is that person. And so that's one of the reasons that they've never remade that one, was because they would have to like renegotiate with him in order to use his likeness again.
Yeah, for that task. Like, they probably got it in the first place.
Yeah. But like in the future, when you can just make a face, like what if you base that face off from someone else's? I wonder what the legal recourse of that is like.
I'm not sure, because, like, if it's something you've made, even if you're using, like... If you're using, like, direct measurements or, like, a scan that was directly made off of them, I'm not sure. But if it's something you make just using, like, reference pictures or something, like, that's still yours.
And it's just for me, like, not for commercial use.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's just theirs. But, I mean, you can sell the original.
Yeah.
You painted it, or you made it, it's yours.
It's interesting. It's like...
You couldn't necessarily, like, make bunches and bunches of copies of it.
But, like, what is modeling like in the future, you know? If someone else can just make that face and that body.
Make it once. Is that really valuable, though? It seems like it's probably very, very expensive.
I don't know.
And those sculptors seem to be rare because they were doing stuff realistically, but were they also doing it originally?
It's interesting, too. I mean, we don't see a lot of people shirtless or naked. I mean, we saw a couple bodies here, but like for the most part, people are still human and like just average, I think.
Oh yeah, you mean like they haven't made themselves to look like freaking like Mr. Fantastic or something like that, you know?
Well, like early, we did have some exceptions, like that one dude who was in like the spider box or whatever. But
yeah, the oil magnate guy. I forget what he was actually. He was owner of one of those genome companies, but yeah, that guy.
But like Greek artists, they sort of started with like man as man was, but then eventually it came to the point of like Superman, right? Of like this is our idealized version of man. Like no man could actually look like this, but like this is the sculpture that I'm making, kind of thing.
Oh, they were also in their minds. They were also sculpting gods.
True.
So.
But gods in the form of men, right?
Yeah.
So.
That's why it's so interesting where like you can see the progression of like what the ideal female body is too, because like some of the sculpts that like Michelangelo did and such, it's like, oh, it's so realistic and she's so beautiful, and it is actually more realistic than some of the stuff we have nowadays.
Sure.
Like she actually has a bit of,
Well, women didn't necessarily get the same treatment as like the heroic man.
Oh yeah, they're definitely trophies and stuff to be won in props for stories, basically. But as they were like portrayed and such, yeah. Maybe it is a sensation of people realizing just how far from human they feel like they're going, and so there's like a sense of normalcy they want to try to acquire.
Sure. Makes sense. And I think Section 9 are largely the exception. Like, I don't think the majority of people are a majority prosthetic. I think.
I mean, I think you have to be a certain, like, almost a certain minimum.
Well, yeah, everyone has a cyber brain.
I think.
Or at least a casing, I think, for it. But I'd like to see the stats, the demographics.
Yeah.
The whole idea of, like, facial wounds reflecting emotional wounds, it kind of tracks with Goda, of, like, why he kept the face the way that it was.
Oh, yeah, that's a big connection there.
Of trying to
keep his memories.
Well, maybe keep his memories, but also it could just be a representation of, like, I am a manifestation of everything that's wrong with society. Like, I am ugly because the world is ugly.
Yeah. He wants to retain that connection with that trauma as closely as possible. In order to fulfill what he sees as his duty.
They mentioned DNA stored in prosthetic body. Wonder what that means. Like, is it just a
barcode?
Yeah. Like, is there a mandate that no matter how much of an artificial body you have, like, you have to keep your fingerprints, you have to keep your dental records, like, you have to keep these identifying things? I wonder.
I mean, that sounds reasonable. I mean, same way with, like, back in the past of nowadays, we have like social security cards and stuff like that.
Sure.
We have our own, physical identifiers, but even then, there's been people that have had like face transplants because of like horrible accidents or attacks. So it's a process that has already happened even nowadays. I just imagine it's a little bit more normalized then, but as in like there's probably forms, like a standardized form you can fill out.
Yeah.
But I feel like the really fascinating time to witness in this culture was like 150 years ago or something, or however long it would have been, 100 years ago, when they were first hitting a lot of those choices with people. How are we as a culture going to handle these amazing technological improvements to the point where like we can't ignore this. We can't say no anymore. We can't pass this up. We have to start having prosthetics, and people want to still feel like people, so they have to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
So witnessing how those choices were made and how everybody like reacted to them and then just got used to them would have been really cool to see.
Yeah. I would be most fascinated by like the legal process of everything.
I know, right?
The different laws and things that
like the
have
fact
to come about.
I mean, it kind of tracks that the police would be so behind that they're like, the fingerprints, they still matter somehow. Like fingerprints, I swear, like over a decade ago, I saw Gone in 60 Seconds, and they like glued new fingerprints onto themselves with super glue. I remember thinking, it's like, oh, brilliance. And that movie wasn't even super amazing or
I
anything.
think National Treasure had that too, right?
I know, right?
Yep, that's quite the trope.
And it's not like fingerprints are actually that, like we've got twins, we've got lots of crazy stuff. Like even with genes,
Sure.
people aren't as, far off as they like to think sometimes.
But yeah, I mean, there have been twins as long as there have been humans.
Yeah.
And yet the legal system still
Pretends to.
like cannot handle.
Yeah. It's like technically, if you have a like perfect genetic twin, it's like, how could they know?
Yeah.
How could they really know? They don't. There have already been situations where it's like, oh, sure, I'll serve the time for you. You have Christmas and Easter, and I'll have Thanksgiving and Halloween, But just imagine, like, oh, that's just so weird. Like, the amount of weird stories that could come out. The amount of weird stories that happen nowadays with so little. Imagine the kind of weird stories that would come out of that time period.
Sure.
Where he's just like, oh, you find out, apparently this woman has been married to 7 men wearing the same body for 40 years. And she only just found out. Dun dun. Tonight at 7.
What an opening line by Pazu as well. Like, first thing he says is, I'm not the kind of man that sleeps with the same woman twice.
He really
Wonder
puts
what
himself in a
venereal
box.
diseases are like in the future.
I mean, I imagine there's viruses.
Of both kinds.
Yeah.
Probably so.
It seems like that'd be a great way. I mean, was it the very first episode? We had a senator basically, he liked to go into the stripper bot thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even remember if those were actually people running those things or if they were just straight androids.
I'm not sure. He had his brain box, I remember.
Yeah, but like he was, jacking in. So, yeah. Gosh. Is this the future of Demolition Man too? Like,
I don't think so.
They just put helmets on and like, that was great. Smoke.
Don't think so.
If it had just a bit more like sad sax music, it would have been just it would have had that like Lethal Weapon. It had that Lethal Weapon sound to it. That do that just like kind of sad, nostalgic, seen bad shit sort of sound. So, is Pazu's face prosthetic?
I don't know, maybe. I don't think so.
It doesn't necessarily have to be.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. Like, she just could have showed the sculptor a picture and recreated it. Oh, that was the other thing that I wanted to talk about, was the fact that Japan has so few face sculptors because, like, their cultural art is much more, not abstract, but, how would you describe it?
No theater.
Sure.
Symbolism and anime.
Yeah, it's much more like not fine details, but
I would almost say the opposite, because it's fine details, but they're, instead of communicating with like visual realistic media, they're using that stuff to communicate fine details of emotions and such.
Sure.
When I first started watching anime and started connecting the fact that, oh, these characters, like when they, you know, are showing someone being like playful or something, and all of a sudden the person grows like cat ears and like their face totally changes, like, oh, they're using this media to get across the fact that this person's being playful without really using the language, but using the visual media.
Now,
once I made that connection, it's like, oh, I enjoy this so much more.
I always appreciated the feeling of movement in like ancient Japanese paintings. Like I could kind of see it leaping out of the page and moving, you know?
Mm-hmm. I like because on one hand, I feel like they're paintings of things other than humans are like incredibly like spiritual and close, and they can represent a tree with just like 2 lines or something like that, and it means tree. It looks perfect and beautiful, and that's all you need. It's like
minimalistic.
Yeah. It's interesting that that would be a cultural thing, I guess, or be considered one.
Yeah, I would suppose so. Like I would, you know, there's tons of things that what language you know affects.
Yeah, like colors, everything like that.
Sense of direction.
Yeah.
Like all those kind of things. So it makes sense that that might also affect how you see the world and how you portray it in your art as well.
That makes sense. I wonder what cultures handle like emotional language best.
I'm not sure. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to find out. As this show always makes you think interesting thoughts, and that is why I love it.
Yeah.
So let's watch more. We have to wait a week, but you do not. You can watch us watch more of this show right now over at patreon.com/blindwave, where you can see the next 4 reactions to this and a bunch of other stuff as well. Also, make sure you're subscribing on the channel so that you can catch new stuff as it comes week to week. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.